Hello guys, welcome to the channel and I talk about psychology, health, wealth and self. And today's topic is you are not bad, you are just early. Most people quit a skill before they have enough evidence to show whether they are actually bad at it. They try sales for 30 calls, they try writing for 10 articles, they try the gym for 3 weeks. They try public speaking twice, hate the sound of their own voice, and quietly decide they are not a natural. That conclusion feels intelligent because it is based on experience. But the experience is too small. You are using beginner level evidence to make a prediction about expert level potential, and that is a mistake. Early difficulty does not mean you are not built for the skill. It usually means you have just met the first honest part of the learning curve. You are not bad. You are early. The first hours lie to you. The early stage of any valuable skill is emotionally misleading. You put in effort, but the result barely moves. You practice, but the output still looks ugly. You study, but the real situation still feels fast, awkward, and uncomfortable. So your brain starts telling a story. Maybe this is not for me. Maybe other people are just talented. Maybe I should find something that fits my strength. Sometimes that story is true, but not every skill deserves years of your life. But most people reach for that conclusion far too early. 10 bad sales calls do not provide you are bad at sales. 5 awkward presentations do not prove you cannot speak. 20-minute gym sessions do not prove your body cannot change. A few failed business offers do not prove the market rejected you forever. They prove you are at the stage where the skill is still expensive. Everything costs attention, everything feels manual. You cannot yet see the pattern that experienced people see automatically. That is not your ceiling, that is your starting point. Research on expertise has argued for decades that expert performance is usually built through prolonged, effortful practice designed to improve specific aspect of performance, not just casual exposure or time spent nearby. At the same time, reviews of deliberate practice literature are clear that practice is not the only factor, and no simple hour count guarantees mastery. That distinction matters. The point is not that 1000 hours magically turns you into a master. The point is that 20 hours is usually not enough evidence to decide you cannot become good. You want a 1000-hour outcome from a 50-hour investment, and that is the real problem. People underestimate the scale of the skill. They walk into a difficult domain with a tiny investment and a massive expectation. They want the confidence of someone who has made 1,000 calls after making 30. They want the body of someone who has trained for 3 years after training for 3 weeks. They want the judgment of founder who has tested offers for years after watching a few videos and sending a few messages. Then when the result does not appear, they blame talent. But the expectation was wrong from the start. You did not fail the skill, you mispriced the skill. Before you decide you are bad at something, ask a better question. How many serious hours have I actually accumulated? Not hours thinking about it, not hours watching videos, not hours talking about it, actual practice hours. Hours where you were doing the thing, receiving feedback, noticing mistakes, and correcting the next attempt. Most people do not like this question because it removes the drama. It is much easier to say I am not talented than to admit I have only practiced this for 40 hours and expected a life changing result. The second answer is less poetic. It is also more useful. No visible result does not mean no progress. Progress often hides before it appears. In the gym, the first week may feel like nothing. Your body is learning the movement, your joints are adapting, your nervous system is getting better at recruiting muscles. But the mirror may not reward you yet. In business, the first 50 hours may barely teach you who the customer is. You are still learning what people care about, what they ignore, what they pay for, and what they say just to be polite. In sales, 30 failed calls may feel like rejection, but they may actually be teaching you where your explanation is vague, where your confidence drops, where the offer is unclear, and where the prospect loses interest. In speaking, the first attempt feel clumsy because you are trying to think, speak, manage your body, read the room, remember your point, and sound natural at the same time. Of course, it feels awkward. You are running too many systems manually. Skill it what happens when some of those systems become automatic. But automatically takes repetition. It takes enough exposure for your brain to stop treating every piece of the task as new. This is why no visible result can be so dangerous. So, you assume nothing is happening because nothing obvious has appeared. But underneath, your perception is changing, your timing is changing, your error detection is changing, your tolerance is changing. The scoreboard may still say 0. That does not mean the work is empty. Early failure is weak evidence. Your first attempt should be bad. That is not motivational language, it is just the structure of learning. A beginner does not yet know what to pay attention to. They misread signals. They overvalue surface details. They copy the wrong thing. They react slowly because they have no internal map. So, when the beginner performs badly, what exactly has proven? Only that they are beginner. That is it. The first version of your writing is not evidence that you cannot write. It is evidence that your taste is ahead of your execution. The first few sales conversations are not evidence that you cannot sell. They are evidence that you do not yet understand the emotional sequence of trust, problems, desire, objection, and decision. The first few months of training are not evidence that your body does not respond. They are evidence that your body is still learning how to respond. Bad early attempts are not verdicts, they are diagnostic tools. They show you what breaks first. That is useful. If you miss the same point in every conversation, you have found the next thing to train. If your writing always becomes vague in the middle, you have found the next thing to train. If your body always collapses after two consistent weeks, you have found the next system to build. Your mistakes are not proof that you should leave. They are the map of what needs deliberate attention next. The hidden skill under every skill. There is a skill underneath most skill that nobody wants to train. Delayed result tolerance. The ability to continue when the scoreboard does not validate you yet. Most people can work hard when the reward is quick. They can push when praise arrives. They can stay motivated when the numbers are moving. They can keep going when every session gives them emotional proof. They are not rare. The rare part is continuing when nothing obvious is happening. No praise, no money, no applause, no visible transformation, no external confirmation that the work is working. This is where most people quit, not because the task became impossible, but because the work stopped paying them emotionally. They start looking for the new skill, a new method, a new niche, a new coach, a new app, a new identity. The switch feels intelligent. Sometimes it is, but often it is just impatience wearing strategies clothes. They were not failing, they were early, and they left before repetition had enough time to compound. Hours matter, but not all hours count the same. There is another trap here. Once people hear that skill takes time, they start worshipping hours. That is not enough. 1000 hours of scattered, distracted, low feedback repetition can still leave you average. You can spend years learning business without ever making enough offers. You can consume endless content about writing without publishing enough pieces. You can watch sales breakdowns for months while avoiding live calls. You can study fitness, nutrition, and training theory while barely training hard enough to change your body. Knowing about the skill is not same as practicing the skill. Information feels safer because it does not exposes you. Practice exposes you. Practice gives you a result that can be judged, a call that fails, a draft that reads badly, a lift that is weaker than you expected, a video where your voice sounds strange, an offer nobody buys. That is why people hide in learning. Learning gives the feeling of progress without the risk of visible incompetence. But skill is built in the risk. You need information, but only enough to improve the next repetition. After that, the answer is practice. The new problem is not lack of information. A few decades ago, finding good information was very hard. You needed access to teachers, books, institutions, mentors, or rare environments. Now the problem has flipped. You have too much books, courses, podcasts, experts, tutorials, threads, frameworks, breakdowns, case studies, contradictions. You can spend an entire year learning about a skill without accumulating one serious month of practice. And every new source gives you a small hit of motivation. This course might be the one. This expert explains it better. This method fixes the missing piece. This framework is more advanced. So you keep switching. The learning feels rich, but the practice becomes fragmented. You know more than before, but you are not noticeably better. That is a painful place to be because it creates an identity problem. You feel like someone who has done work, but your results do not show it. The truth is sharper. You consumed around the skill, but did not accumulate inside the skill. Concentration create compounding. 1,000 hours spread across 20 different skills does not create the same person as 1,000 hours concentrated on one meaningful skill. The scattered person has many beginnings, the concentrated person has depth. Depth changes everything. At first, the repetitions feel separate. One sales calls, one writing session, one workout, one practice drill, and edited video. Nothing dramatic. Then the repetition start connecting. You notice patterns faster. You recover from mistakes sooner. You stop needing so much emotional buildup before beginning. You develop taste. You see what matters and ignores what does not. You begin to understand the skill from the inside. This is what compounding look like in practice. Not dramatic at first, almost boring. Then suddenly obvious. Other people see the visible result and call it talent. They did not see the private accumulation that made the result possible. They did not see hour 70 or hour 140 or hour 310. when you still looked ordinary from the outside, but something inside the system had started changing. That is why consistency with direction is so powerful. You are not just repeating, you are installing judgment. Focus beats talent more often than people admit. Talent matters. Anyone who tells you it does not is selling comfort. Some people learn faster, some people have better starting conditions, some people have physical, cognitive, social, or financial advantage that make certain skill easier to develop. But talent without staying power is fragile. A moderately talented person who concentrates for years can beat a more talented person who keeps switching. That is becoming more true, not less. Because the modern world is built to fragment attention. Every week gives you a new direction to consider, a new trend, a new opportunity, a new method, a new person succeeding in a way that makes your current path feel slow. If you obey every signal, you will stay permanent early. Early in this skill, early in the next one, early in the one after that. Always learning, never accumulating. Sustained focus is now an advantage because fewer people can tolerate it. Not because they are stupid, because the environment keeps rewarding novelty. The person who can choose one valuable skill, ignore most input, and stack serious practice for years become unusual. Not flashy, unusual. And unusual is enough. The four-part system. Do not make this complicated. The system is simple. Not easy, simple. Choose one skill, pick the skill that would genuinely change the shape of your life if you become good at it. Not five skills. One, writing, selling, coding, speaking, training, designing, managing, investing, building a business, content creation, leading people. Choose the one that matters enough to survive boredom. A backup skill sounds safe, but it often becomes an exit door. The moment progress slows, you tell yourself you are being strategic and move to the backup. Then the backup gets hard, and another backup appears. You never stay long enough for any one skill to pay you back. Choose one skill for a defined season, then give it a fair chance. Ignore most information. You do not need every book. You do not need every expert. You do not need 15 frameworks competing in your head. Pick a small number of high quality sources that directly support the skill you are practicing right now. Then ignore the rest. This will feel uncomfortable. Good. That discomfort is the cost of focus. You will miss useful information, accept that. The goal is not to know everything. The goal is to become capable at skill you choose. Those are different games. Accumulate hours. Track your practice not because numbers are magic, but because memory lies. If you do not track your hours, you will overestimate your effort when results are absent and underestimate your progress when the work becomes routine. Write down the actual practice 30 focused minutes, one sales call reviewed, two pages drafted, one speaking rehearsal recorded, one workout completed, one coding problem solved. Keep the record playing. You are building evidence. At hour 50, you may still be rough. At hour 200, you may start seeing patterns. At hour 500, people may begin calling you naturally good. They are late to the story, you are not. Stay in the game. This is the part that decides everything. Do not quit simply because progress is slower than expected. Slow does not mean broken. Invisible does not mean absent. Awkward does not mean impossible. Before quitting, Ask whether the skill has reviewed enough deliberate practice to produce a fair result. If the answer is no, be honest. You are not making a final judgment about your ability. You are reacting to being early. Stay long enough to know the difference. Pick one skill today, write it down clearly, then write the first realistic commitment besides it. Not master this, write something measurable. For example, 200 practice hours over the next 6 months, 5 focus sessions every week, 1 live repetition daily, 1 recorded review after each attempt. Then cut the noise, reduce the books, courses, videos, and experts to the few that directly improves your next repetition. Track the hours. Expect the first stretch to feel unimpressive. And when the thought appears, maybe I am just not built for this, do not treat it like truth. Treat it like a beginner's weather. Keep practicing. You do not know your ceiling yet. You only know what hour you are on. So if you like this type of content or if you want me to make video on another topic, then please let me know. Until then, see you in the next video.